we're going to be talking about Michigan coach Juwan Howard and his recent suspension. In the post-game between Michigan and Wisconsin's game on February 20th, Howard got into an argument with the Wisconsin coaches, in the handshake line. Apparently, he was upset they called a timeout late while they were up significantly in points. Howard proceeded to swing at one of the Wisconsin assistant coaches just a few days ago on Monday. It was announced that Howard will be suspended for the rest of the regular season and fined $40,000. Some people are even calling to stop the tradition of shaking the other team's hands at the end of the game. What do you guys think about that? And what do you guys think about the severity of Howard's punishment?
Okay, so I get why he was punished in this way. Now, if this brawl, or whatever you want to call it, slap, I have no idea what you want to call it, if this happened earlier in the season, then no, I don't think he'd be suspended for the rest of the season because there's not a lot of the regular season left. So I think that's part of the reason why. I mean, look, as a Big Ten organization, as the Big Ten league, and as Michigan, yeah, you need to come down hard on this because, it's like it's not a good look. I mean, for like all intents and purposes, it's not a good look. And I'll get to something else in a second. But you got to show force. You got to be like, this isn't acceptable, and you got to like do all that. And I get that. That's fine. But I'll say this: I didn't have a problem with it. Now that may be like me not really appreciating the moment and all that. Like, look, I'm someone who I love the intensity of sports. Now, I'm not saying we need to have like full-on fist fights in every single game that's played,
like hockey.
And I'm not saying we need to have like the malice in the palace, because that is an example of when the fighting gets too crazy and people are severely injured. That being said, like you mentioned hockey, I love in hockey when players fight. I wish, and I miss it, I wish we still had baseball brawls. I wish players still charged them out. I love watching like old highlight footage, like the infamous 80s Mets brawl against the Phillies. Like nowadays, it's just players like they walk up to each other, they go, "Oh yeah, what do you want?" and then they just like walk away. Like I don't mind when things get a little like physical. Now I get like I'm not advocating assault. Like I'm not advocating violence against other people. Like that's obviously absurd. But like sports are intense, so like every once in a while, if someone involved in the game, a little open-handed slap. I didn't really think he made contact. Did he make? I think he made contact. But like,
yeah,
it's just like, I don't know. To me, it's like a gut thing. Like I get why they punished him. I think it was appropriate. I don't think they need to do anything further. That being said, I'm not going to sit here on my high horse like some people are and saying that this is like a disgrace to the game of college basketball. No, trust me, the game of college basketball has already been disgraced by much worse things and much worse people. An open-handed slap from Juwan Howard on an assistant coach in Wisconsin is not one of them. And by the way, these same people that are like freaking out about Juwan Howard, aren't these the same people that love Bobby Knight and like the psycho coaches that have choked out kids? But hey, a slap on another coach, that's too much. Like, I don't know. I get the punishment. It was right. Juwan also apologized. He released a good statement. Fair enough. I also love that it was a guy who's part of the Fab Four, Fab Five, whatever. From Michigan. That's also kind of funny to me that it's like, of course it's him. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't really bother me. I wasn't offended.
I wasn't really bothered by it either. I think, honestly, what was surprising to me is that it was a Michigan-Wisconsin game and not like a Michigan-Ohio State. That's what would have sent me, been like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand this. It's a Big Ten game. I get it. But at the same time, I understand how they decided to deal out the punishment with the rest of the season being out. I think people are upset only because of this being the timing of there's only 5 games left in the regular season. I think had this happened like 2 games in, this would have been a completely different conversation. This would have been way more complicated to try and navigate through. 4 punches as punches go. That was weak. I think we can agree on that one. We've seen a couple baseball fights, and oh my gosh, it was also baseball like. Like I've seen a couple baseball fights that have been below average. Yeah. So I think I've seen calls for him to be fired. I would not fire him.
That's absurd.
That's absurd to me. I think, when you are in such the heat of the moment, because it had to do with a lot of calls coming around in the second half. And I think you look at that, it's not like he really was like, oh my God, I hate the other coach. I hate everything. You're frustrated. As a coach, at least it shows that he's into the game. He's into his team. He wants his team to win. He's passionate about it. As messed up as that might sound, that say, okay, well then I think you should fight the other guy. To me, it's not warranting enough to lose your job. You lose your job over something that is actually controversial rather than just a fight. If everybody was getting suspended over fights or getting fired over fights, nobody would be in the league, period, at the end of the day. So I think his apology, I read his apology, seems sincere enough to me. Like, as apologies go, it was pretty lengthy, pretty good. Said, I thought about my actions. I feel better about, how I'm going to go forward. I deeply apologize to the coach, the assistant coach, everything like that. What more can you really ask for Juwan Howard at this point? And, I think the suspension fits it. I know the other coaches were also fined, I believe, like $10K, and
something like that.
he was fined like $40K. So, to me, it wasn't like fully the blame was on Juwan Howard. There was obviously some kind of like disagreement that went on that, the other coach is not like out of it completely. But yeah, I don't see a huge issue with it. I think people are overblowing it out of proportion. So, what more can I ask for through just like Michigan? Hopefully they can get through the season without him.
Yeah, I've played sports my whole life, not at a particularly high level or anything, but I very much talk a lot. And a lot of times it gets very chippy, and people argue, oh, that's what's wrong with sports. I think it's one of the best parts of sports, to be honest. It's so much fun, and it's not personal most of the time. It just gets really intense, and people like to talk, and once in a while, punches or open hands are thrown. Definitely not condoning assault, like you said, Mike. But sometimes it gets a little spicy, and the suspension. Yes, I think he should have been punished. $40,000, a lot of money. I don't, whatever. I agree with the punishment there too. Definitely should not be fired. I think that's ridiculous. But it was, as I said, it was definitely a very NBA punch. There wasn't a ton of malice of I'm gonna, knock you out or I'm gonna really try and hurt you. It was just kind of like frustration and heat between the guys. So I honestly don't really think it's that big of a deal.